What's up, healing warriors? Let's talk about toxic heavy metals and viral neurotoxins coming from Epstein-Barr virus, shingles virus, or cytomegalovirus that can highly affect your mental health and create anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD, mood swings, depersonalization, anger, dark thoughts, irrational thoughts, visions, images, guilt, shame, and it gets really intense, especially with chronic illness. It can really amplify that. And that's something that I got hit with heavy. I started getting panic attacks at the age of 21, and I went on Paxil medication for 10 years, and it took away my panic attacks. But coming off of that and making all these changes and being in a bad place in a relationship and just the medication messed up my brain, and having all the other toxins and then the virus kicking up, like my brain was just in absolute chaos. I had all of those mental health symptoms, all of them that I just told you guys, all of them. And it wasn't, I knew that the medication caused damage for sure, but it wasn't until I found the medical medium information that I actually knew exactly what was causing everything in my brain, and then also how to heal it, right? And I didn't know what was happening or how to heal it until I found the medical medium information. I had to do a shit ton of mental and spiritual work to get through that process, but to get the stuff out of my brain so I don't have it anymore took me, 6 years. I still have some lingering things, but it's nothing compared to what was. It was so severe. Like, there was so much darkness in my brain. I had to learn how to navigate that and then trust this cleansing process. So if you have these toxic heavy metals and neurotoxins in your brain, right, what they're doing is they're short-circuiting your neurotransmitters, interrupting your normal thought patterns, right? So you have thoughts, you have feelings, you have actions. It's going to reroute the electrical highway, right, through. It's like a log. It's like your neurons are like a river flowing, and toxic heavy metals, neurotoxins, are like a big log, falling in front of that river, stopping the flow of water, right? It stops them and then reroutes them, and that electrical current misfires, and the neurotransmitters misfire, right? And that's where you get all of these mental health symptoms coming from, these poisons in your brain. This is where it's tricky, because you can have a lot of things that come up for you mental health wise because of mindset and also emotional wounds and trauma, right? That can also happen. And fear creates a lot. Like the toxic heavy metals and neurotoxins, like, feed off the fear, right? Every time I was in fear, it's all amplified, right? But when I learned how to breathe through it, surrender through it, right, it can all calm down. But those other nasty poisons were still causing a lot of discomfort. And the only way to, you got to get them out through cleansing the liver. Like cilantro is amazing for pulling them out. Spirulina, barley grass juice powder, all the heavy metal ingredients like wild blueberries all pull out heavy metals. But it's also how you got to get your liver functioning to keep pulling things out, right? Celery juice deactivates them, right? It heals and nourishes those, increases those electrical activity in your brain, right? Lots of fruits, really all fruits do it, but melons, papayas, apples, pears, grapes, berries, cherries, these are all excellent pulling heavy metals out of the brain. And neurotoxins too, right? Those pull neurotoxins. You got to get your liver cleansing and alkalizing efficiently, because if you're eating high fat, if you're eating dairy and gluten, feeding a virus, right, the neurotoxins create a lot of mental health issues on top of the toxic heavy metals. And I had massive amounts of both of them, right? It was just insane up here. It's why but it elevated me spiritually, mindset, so much because of that suffering. So it was like a catch-22. But it's not something that I would choose or want anyone to go through, or I didn't want to be in it, but I had to go through it, right? I had to go through so much suffering. And my detoxification, I had so much poisons inside of me, right, that it amplified that stuff. It amplified all of the mental health stuff, right? I'd get this crazy rage and mood swing that was out of this world, and the thoughts that are just controlling and suffocating from cleansing my body because I was so sick and so toxic and so viral. That was my path. But the only way out for me was to heal the brain, was to get that stuff out. And it felt worse before it got better, right? Through those heavy detox moments. But a lot of people, they can just make the changes, getting rid of the troublemaker foods. I was just sensitive, right? So that was my path, right? But a lot of people can make the changes to getting rid of the troublemaker foods and doing things like GABA and 5-HTP and vitamin B12 and B complex and magnesium glycinate and neuromag, these and celery force, these things that support the brain and calm the neurotransmitters and rebuild those neurotransmitters, as well as the healing foods like glucose coming from fruits and potatoes and sweet potatoes and squashes. That's what your brain runs on, the glucose, and your liver has a glucose reserve that needs to be rebuilt to send glucose to your brain to increase the electrical activity. And the glucose also pulls out poisons and it opens your detox pathways, right? So it's all done with healing foods and leafy greens, right? Really increase the nutrient absorption of that glucose, and mineral salts enhances the electrical activity. So cleansing with the medical media information is how I've healed like just tons of mental health just struggles, like so severe, along with my spiritual path, right? That was absolutely necessary. But it depends on how severe yours is, right? If yours is not as severe, right, you can, I always recommend meditation, the spiritual path, but just cleansing, right? Getting that stuff out, getting that out of your brain, right? And you got to go through it and love yourself through that process. That's how you're going to heal those things forever. Because there's a lot of people who work on their mental health, the spiritual path, and they don't free themselves of the struggles in their brain. They know how to cope with it and work with it, but they don't free themselves because they still got the stuff going on, because they don't cleanse the body, right? So you want to get rid of that stuff forever to have a clear brain function. You got to cleanse, and heal your emotional wounds. But chronic illness can enhance your mental health struggles with those neurotoxins, man. Those things, man, I had all sorts of darkness, dark images, dark thoughts that were just nasty, right, to see and to be with, and depersonalization where nothing felt real, crippling anxiety. The depression came really when cleansing a lot. That I can go into some dark spaces, and just the spinning mind, right? The OCD mind, all these things, toxic heavy metals and neurotoxins, all was super heavy in the brain. So it's just built up poisons, right? I was poisoned my whole life. You guys are poisoning your life. We got to reverse that process, right? And the virus will feed on the metals. So we got to get out the metals to get rid of the virus. So we got to heal the liver to filter out all the stuff out of the brain, right? Celery juice, heavy metal detox smoothie, melons, leafy greens, potatoes, raw vegetables, raw asparagus is one of the best. Lots of juices, proper supplementation. You guys can heal the brain, right? Cleanse the liver to heal the brain, and those healing foods are gonna bring your brain back to life. The brain can heal from anything when you are cleanse that liver and you go through that process. But the big problem is the acidic adrenaline, right? That's a big problem because that does scorch the brain and it overburns the liver, which will kick up more neurotoxins, and the heavy metals will float up there. So that's why I always talk about, when we're talking about mental health, I always got to bring in meditation and breathing and self-love, right? Regulating the nervous system, right, is so important to stopping the acidic adrenaline so your body can cleanse more and it can calm down the brain a little bit, and so you can learn to observe more of what's happening here rather than being so reactive to it. You do have that power. It just takes training. So I always recommend both, but to free yourself, cleanse, guys. Cleanse. And I'm mostly free of it, but I'm not fully healed yet. 85% healed. I feel really good, strong, energized, coming from someone who's bedbound for 4 years, housebound for 6.5 years, with these severe symptoms. And now things come up a little bit here and there, and life is just getting better and better, right? Me being able to live my life freely now, But still probably another 1 to 2 years of cleansing these because I was so sick. And I'm cool with that, right? Like, it takes time, right? I got to be okay with that. I never expected it to take this long, but I'm so sick. Like, it's like I got to be okay with what is and the healing that's happening on God's timing to get this nasty stuff out of my brain. It was so severe, and the only way I made through it really was because of the truth with the medical information of what was causing it, and I was doing the information to heal it. So I knew that was all happening. So I knew it was just a matter of time. But other than that, it's keeping a light heart, right? Really loving myself and positively talking to myself and holding myself and learning to not believe the stuff happening in my brain and just to observe what was happening in my brain. Because it was dark. So I became the light. Got to become the light and trust the cleansing process, right? Because it is the truth. I promise you that, what the medical medium is saying. And it's freed my brain of darkness that people can't even imagine. There's something that happened with my soul too that I'm not going to tell you guys because I'm going to save that for another video because it's a long story and it's very complicated. But it was my most intense and severe symptom. It's wild. I'm going to keep you guys on your toes for that one. But you can free your brain of the neurotoxins, the viruses, and the toxic heavy metals. Right? They got to come out to get a clear brain, a clear mind. Right? We got to get them out. They cause so many mental health problems, and when the body becomes acidic, it affects the mind, and vice versa too. When the mind is dark, it affects the body. So cleanse the body, mind, body, soul. Do the spiritual work. Cleanse the liver with the earthly nourishment and do the spiritual work, returning to love. And if you guys are struggling with mental health and you want to work on cleansing, you have chronic symptoms, you want to work on healing these things, book a session with the link in my bio and I'll walk you through how to cleanse. And if you're detoxifying and it gets more enhanced, that happened to me too. Like, I knew I was cleansing more. My mind would start spinning like crazy. Wouldn't be still at all and start to get darker the more I cleansed. I had to navigate that, so I can teach you guys how to navigate that as well by pushing and slowing my detox to a pace I can handle. I'd have these rage outbreaks that were so insane while my liver was purging mercury and neurotoxins. Crazy. You can get through all of it. I love you guys. Keep cleansing your livers and keep loving yourself.